You did what they told you. You chose the low-fat options, skipped the butter, poured skim instead of cream, and turned your plate into a quiet promise that you'd do what it takes to protect your heart. You looked at the labels, counted the grams, followed the arrows that pointed toward leaner, cleaner living. But somewhere between the good intentions and the afternoon fatigue, you felt it, that something wasn't adding up. Your breath shortens on the stairs even though you walk every day. Your numbers still nudge upward even with all the foods they said were safe. You're doing everything right, so why does your body feel like it's working harder than ever? It's not failure. It's not age catching up. It's not weakness or laziness or a missed step in your routine. It's something quieter, something tucked inside the decisions you made with love for yourself. Because not all foods that wear the word healthy speak truth. Some carry a burden your body can feel long before your mind catches on. You feel it in your chest after a meal that promised wellness but delivered something else. You feel it in the fog that settles behind your eyes, in the pulse that pushes harder than it should. You were never trying to cheat the system. You were trying to protect your heart. But the rules changed and no one told you. The foods that promised to shield your body were quietly shifting things inside, trading fat for fillers, balance for spikes, fullness for artificial calm. And over time, your heart, the very thing you were trying to protect, was left to bear the cost. You didn't fail. You followed the signs. But now it's time to turn and look at them again, with wiser eyes and a heart ready to be heard. It starts in the store, in the quiet glow of a grocery aisle that promises health in bold letters and bright colors. You reach for the product that claims to love your heart, low-fat, fat-free, cholesterol-lowering, heart-healthy. The package says everything you want to hear. It knows what you've been taught to fear, and so you trust it. Because why wouldn't you? You're not trying to be perfect, you're trying to be safe, to live a little longer, breathe a little easier, feel a little lighter. But behind those health claims is something they don't print in bold. When they take the fat out, something has to go in, and more often than not, it's sugar, it's starch, it's emulsifiers and gums and synthetic flavoring that mimic richness but deliver confusion to your body. Your taste buds are convinced, but your heart isn't fooled. It starts working harder, burning through quick energy, navigating the spikes in blood sugar that come not from indulgence, but from the very foods that promised discipline. Over time, those spikes stretch your blood vessels, burden your arteries, and leave behind a residue your heart can't simply rinse away. This isn't about blame, it's about clarity. You thought you were choosing better, and in many ways you were, but better doesn't always mean real. And when food becomes more chemistry than nourishment, your body speaks. Not in dramatic collapses, but in subtler signals. The morning stiffness, the afternoon crash, the quiet thump behind your ribs that doesn't feel quite right. The packaging told one story, but your body is living another. And now that story deserves to be heard, not filtered through marketing, but through truth your heart can actually trust. It seems harmless. A small cup in the fridge, cool and creamy, labeled with promises, low fat, probiotic, gut-friendly. You peel back the lid, trusting it to nourish, to protect, to give your heart and body something clean. And in a way, the idea of yogurt still holds that old, comforting weight, something your generation once knew as simple, alive, real. But now it's been rewritten, stripped down, altered to fit a trend. The fat is gone, but what replaced it is far from harmless. To make it palatable without fat, manufacturers add sugar, more than you'd expect from something considered healthy. They add gums to create the illusion of creaminess, starches to stabilize, artificial flavors to mimic what nature once gave freely. Your body doesn't recognize it the same way. Your digestion slows, your blood sugar lifts, and the heart you thought you were protecting begins to work around the clock to clean up the aftermath. What you intended as gentle becomes a quiet burden that builds meal after meal. You don't see it right away. You still think you're doing the right thing, but over time, the yogurt cup becomes a symbol, not of health, but of how easily good intentions can be hijacked. You notice the fatigue after breakfast, the hunger that returns too soon, the tightness in your chest on a walk that used to feel easy, and slowly you begin to understand this isn't about removing fat. It's about removing the right kind of nourishment and replacing it with sweetened noise. Your heart doesn't need another label. It needs support, real, full, honest support that doesn't dissolve into sugar behind a foil lid. You start with good intentions, a bowl of greens, a handful of nuts, maybe a hard-boiled egg or a slice of avocado. You build a plate that feels clean, alive, heart-wise. And then, just before the first bite, you reach for the dressing. It's labeled light, low-fat, reduced calorie. You drizzle it on, thinking you've made a smart choice, that you've honored your body without going overboard. But what slides from that bottle isn't what it claims to be. When fat is removed, texture and flavor need rescuing. So in go the substitutes: canola oil, corn syrup solids, thickeners, preservatives, all carefully calibrated to mimic richness without actually delivering nourishment. Your body knows the difference even if your tongue doesn't. These oils, refined, bleached, often rancid by the time they reach your plate, don't feed your cells. They disrupt them. They don't reduce inflammation, they invite it. And your heart, faithful and quiet, begins to feel the shift. And it doesn't scream, it whispers. A flutter here, a heaviness there, a restless night where your pulse runs faster than it should. You don't trace it back to the dressing. Why would you? It's small, it's marketed as harmless. But over days, weeks, months, those small servings stack up into something much heavier than they appear. A chemical symphony that your arteries have to filter, your blood has to carry, your heart has to push through again and again. This isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. You can still enjoy flavor, you can still dress your salads, but your heart no longer benefits from the light version of anything. It craves the truth, even if it comes in the form of a simple olive oil, poured slow and honest, with nothing to hide. It starts as a ritual, a bowl, a spoon, a quick, quiet morning. You pick the cereal that boasts low fat, heart smart, whole grain. You trust the front of the box more than the back of the label. It feels safe, like something a doctor might approve. After all, you've traded the sugary ones for something that looks more mature, less cartoon, more commitment. But what's really inside that box has little to do with health and even less to do with the heart. Most low-fat cereals are built on refined grains, stripped of their original fiber, puffed or flaked until they're more air than substance. And to make them taste like something, manufacturers sneak in added sugars, corn derivatives, and synthetic vitamins that your body barely absorbs. Each bite floods your bloodstream with a surge of glucose, demanding your pancreas wake up, your insulin spike, and your heart prepare for yet another wave it didn't ask for. What should have been calm becomes chaos, invisible but loud inside your blood vessels. You may not notice at first it's just breakfast, but then comes the crash mid-morning, the tightness in your limbs, the strange sense that despite eating, you're still hungry. Your heart starts compensating for the volatility, pumping harder just to stabilize the system. You're not lazy, you're not overeating, you're not broken, you're responding to food that was designed to look clean but act disruptive. And this is where truth starts to matter. Not all cereals are the enemy, but the ones wearing low-fat halos often carry a hidden cost. Your heart doesn't want volume, it wants value. And the most powerful fuel rarely comes in a box. It comes from real ingredients, slow-burning, unprocessed, and steady, just like the rhythm your heart is trying to hold on to. You made the switch years ago. Maybe your doctor suggested it. Maybe a commercial promised it was the smarter option. So you left whole milk behind and reached for the carton that said skim, fat-free, light. It felt responsible, safer. A small change that seemed to align with your heart's well-being. But over time, you began to wonder, why does something feel off? Why does your body, despite all the careful swaps, still feel like it's missing something? Because when fat is taken out of milk, so is balance. The fat in milk doesn't just add richness, it helps your body absorb the calcium, the fat-soluble vitamins, the nourishment that builds bones and calms inflammation. Without it, those nutrients pass through you, unabsorbed, unclaimed. In its place, you get a thinner version of what once was whole, often processed with powdered milk solids to improve texture, sometimes oxidized in ways your body quietly resents. It's not just what's missing, it's what's been altered. And you feel it, maybe not in one cup, but across years of tiny choices. You notice your digestion isn't what it used to be. You notice more aches, more stiffness, more moments where your body seems to lag behind your intentions. And deep down, you begin to suspect this isn't age. It's a slow depletion, not of energy, but of real nourishment. Your heart, like every part of you, is asking for what's real, not what's rebranded. The solution isn't complex, it's courageous. It's returning to what once made sense, whole foods with their original structure intact. Not fearing fat, but understanding its place. Because skim milk might have seemed like a lighter choice, but your heart remembers the strength that lived in every full, unprocessed drop. They sit neatly wrapped in your pantry, in your purse, maybe tucked into the glove compartment of your car, convenient, portable, promising health on the go. Low fat, high fiber, energy boost. The snack bar whispers that it's got your back, that it's a better choice than the chips, a safer option than skipping a meal. And you believe it because it looks the part. But what's inside that shiny wrapper rarely speaks the language of healing. To keep the fat down, these bars often stack up on sweetness. Brown rice syrup, fructose, tapioca starch. They blend in soy protein isolates, puffed grains, synthetic fibers that bulk without benefit. You take a bite, and it tastes satisfying for a moment. But what your taste buds accept, your heart must filter. The sugars rush in, your insulin flares, and your arteries quietly constrict under the pressure. Your heart isn't fooled by convenience. It feels the spike and it braces. And soon, you do too. You feel the crash that comes before the next meal, the irritability, the subtle exhaustion that creeps in like fog mid-afternoon. You blame the day, the weather, the sleep you didn't get. But deep down, your body's been waving a flag, asking for food that sustains, not just fills. Snack bars marketed as low-fat often create more imbalance than support. They borrow energy against your future, leaving your heart to pay the interest. But it doesn't have to stay this way. There are snacks that nourish, that calm your blood sugar, that keep your heart steady instead of strained. A handful of nuts, a boiled egg, a piece of fruit with almond butter. These don't come in shiny wrappers, but they carry what your heart truly wants: steadiness, simplicity, and peace with every bite. It started decades ago, like a whisper that grew into a rule. Fat was the enemy. It clogs your arteries, they said. It causes disease. So you changed your habits. You trimmed meat, tossed egg yolks, swapped butter for margarine. You bought into the promise that less fat meant more life. But now, after all that careful obedience, your body feels worn, not protected, and your heart, the one thing you tried hardest to shield, feels like it's still under threat. That fear of fat was never the full truth. We were taught to lump all fats into one category, to fear what the body actually needs. In reality, your brain, your hormones, your heart itself depend on the right kinds of fat to function. Fat isn't just fuel, it's a messenger. It calms inflammation. It stabilizes blood sugar. It delivers fat-soluble nutrients to the very tissues that keep you standing, breathing, feeling steady. When you removed fat from your diet, you didn't just cut calories. You cut the communication lines your body depends on. And over time, you saw the results. Not in sudden events, but in the slow drift of vitality, memory a little foggier, mood less even, hunger less predictable, and most of all, a heart that feels like it's running on a threadbare thread, pushing through even as it's deprived of what gives it rhythm and rest. This isn't a call to overload, it's an invitation to rebalance, to unlearn the lie that fat is the problem. Real fat, olive oil, avocado, walnuts, fatty fish is part of the solution. It's not about excess, it's about remembering what your body was always built for. And your heart, worn but wise, is ready to receive what it's been waiting for all along. You've been told what to avoid: cut this, skip that, choose light, go lean. But few ever told you what your heart truly longs for. Not in vague promises, but in real, tangible nourishment, because your heart doesn't thrive on deprivation. It doesn't beat stronger because something was removed. It beats stronger when it's given what it needs to repair, to flow, to endure. And the truth is, what it needs isn't complicated. It's just been drowned out by decades of noise. Your heart needs fats that fight for it. Omega-3s from salmon, chia seeds, flax, walnuts. It needs minerals like magnesium and potassium from leafy greens, from avocados, from beans that haven't been overprocessed. It needs cholesterol, not the villain they made it out to be, but the kind that builds hormones, protects nerves, and keeps cellular walls resilient. It needs whole foods, not fractioned ones. Real salt, not the bleached kind. Real sugar in moderation, not chemical sweeteners disguised in long ingredient lists. And maybe more than anything, your heart needs consistency. It needs steadiness, not spikes, nourishment, not just fullness. You've spent years learning what to subtract. Now comes the gentler question. What can you add? What can you reintroduce? Not out of rebellion, but out of reverence for a body that's still trying its best to carry you. Because when your heart gets what it actually needs, it tells you. Your energy lifts, your breathing deepens, your thoughts feel less tangled. The thump in your chest softens into rhythm instead of pressure. And for the first time in a long time, you stop managing symptoms and start feeling supported. Your body isn't fighting you. It's been asking quietly for the truth. And now you're finally ready to answer. The grocery store feels familiar, almost comforting. You know the layout, the brands, the habits. You move down the aisles like muscle memory, cereal, dairy, snacks, the so-called health section with its promises stacked high in glossy packaging. But the more you learn, the more the shelves begin to speak a different language. What once looked like safety now whispers something else. Processed, stripped down, dressed up in wellness buzzwords that say low fat, heart smart, guilt-free, but rarely mention what's real. Because the truth isn't in bold fonts or green labels, it's in the back where the ingredients live, where canola oil hides behind the word blend and sugar takes on new names to distract your eyes. It's in the fine print where gums, emulsifiers, and artificial flavors nestle beside vitamins that didn't come from food. These aren't just products, they're imitations. And when your body is already working hard to age with grace, imitation is a weight it shouldn't have to carry. So you begin to see differently. You slow down in the aisles. You reach less for the boxes that shout and more for the ingredients that whisper, quiet, humble, often pushed to the edges of the store. The eggs with deep yolks, the olive oil in a dark glass bottle, the vegetables that don't need a label to prove their worth. You begin to notice that the foods with the fewest ingredients are the ones that give your heart the most peace. It's not about perfection. It's about presence. You no longer shop on autopilot. You read, you pause, you listen to your body, to your intuition, to the signals beneath the slogans. And slowly, you fill your cart not with confusion, but with clarity. One choice at a time, your heart feels it, and it thanks you. You don't see it at first. Inflammation doesn't shout, it simmers. It starts in places you brush off, a little swelling in the ankles, a stiffness in the morning, a cloudy mind after lunch. It moves quietly, traveling through the bloodstream, settling into the joints, the gut, the lining of your arteries. And while the pain feels scattered, the cause often circles back to the same place, your plate. Not what you overdid, but what you were told was safe. The low-fat choices that promised healing but delivered stress. Because food isn't just fuel, it's a message. When it's made from real things, your body understands it. But when it's processed, altered, stripped of balance, it sends mixed signals. Blood sugar spikes lead to cortisol spikes. Gut disruption leads to immune confusion. And in the center of it all, your heart bears the weight. Inflammation thickens the walls, stiffens the flow, burdens the beat. You may feel it as fatigue, as pressure, as that lingering sense that something's not quite right, even when your meals look healthy on paper. But there's another side to this story. Inflammation can go both ways. Just as it builds, it can also retreat. The same body that reacts can also repair. And it doesn't take an overhaul, just a redirection. Replacing the low-fat bar with real fat from nuts. Swapping the processed spread for grass-fed butter or olive oil. Adding in color, fiber, and foods that haven't been tampered with. Small shifts with big echoes. Because the inflammation cycle is just that, a cycle. It feeds itself until something breaks the rhythm. And you, right now, have the power to be that break. Not by fearing food, but by reclaiming it. One meal at a time, You can teach your heart what safety truly feels like. You've heard it for years. Less fat equals less risk of heart disease, of weight gain, of trouble down the road. So you trimmed, substituted, and simplified. You removed what seemed dangerous, thinking you were steering your body to safety. But now, with years behind you and symptoms that don't quite line up with the promise, a new truth begins to emerge. Removing fat didn't remove the risk. It simply changed its shape. Because when fat is taken away, something else has to take its place. Often, it's sugar, or refined carbs, or processed starches that move through your system too quickly, creating a cycle of cravings and crashes that stress your entire cardiovascular system. Your heart isn't just sensitive to excess, it's sensitive to imbalance. And an overly lean diet, heavy in fake fillers and light on real nutrients, creates just as much strain as overindulgence ever did. The danger didn't disappear. It just wore a cleaner label. But it's not your fault. You weren't misbehaving, you were misled. The science has shifted. Doctors now speak differently about cholesterol, about saturated fats, about the kinds of nourishment that truly protect the heart. They're looking at inflammation, at insulin resistance, at gut health, and in all these areas, the old low-fat dogma starts to crumble. Because risk doesn't just come from fat. It comes from what replaced it. It comes from what you thought was helping but quietly drained your strength. This is your chance to see clearly. Not to swing to extremes, but to step into balance. To trust that your body doesn't want extremes. It wants truth. Fat, in the right forms, isn't your enemy. It's been waiting at the door, ready to re-enter your life not as a threat, but as the missing piece your heart's been searching for. You've done your best to eat clean. You've read the labels, avoided the obvious traps, stayed loyal to the foods that looked the part. Low fat, low calorie, no cholesterol. You believed clean eating meant restraint, control, subtraction. But what if clean doesn't mean sterile? What if clean doesn't mean empty? What if clean, real clean, means full of color, of life, of nutrients that know how to speak your body's language? Real clean eating doesn't come in a shiny wrapper. It doesn't need to shout its benefits in bold letters or hide behind vague health claims. It's the egg with the golden yolk, the salmon with natural oils, the hand-cracked walnuts, the deep green kale that still carries the soil's scent. These aren't just allowed, they're essential. They're not treats, they're tools. And when you welcome them back, your body knows. Your energy shifts, your digestion calms, your heart starts to trust you again. Because real food comes with real fat. Not the kind that clogs, but the kind that coats your cells in resilience. The kind that lets your vitamins travel where they're needed. The kind that nourishes your brain, your nerves, your very sense of stability. You were told to fear this, but now you're starting to remember what your body never forgot. Clean eating isn't about punishing your plate. It's about healing it. And healing doesn't happen through emptiness. It happens through wholeness. A whole food carries its own intelligence. It knows how to work with your body, not against it. A real olive doesn't need to be pressed into a powder. A fresh avocado doesn't need to be broken into macros. These foods arrive ready, already complete, already kind. And the truth is, your body craves simplicity, not in flavor, but in truth. It wants to look at a plate and recognize what's on it, to digest what it understands, to release what no longer serves and to hold on to what repairs. That's what real clean eating does. It returns you to that place where food is not math, it's medicine, where meals are not guilt, they're grace. As you eat differently, not with fear, but with reverence, you begin to notice a change. Not overnight, not dramatic, but steady, honest, grounding. A meal becomes more than fuel. It becomes care. A plate becomes more than compliance. It becomes connection. And your heart, tucked beneath your ribs, no longer feels like it's bracing. It feels like it's beginning to exhale. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need to start from scratch, throw out your pantry, or commit to some extreme new way of eating. A heart-first plate begins with a shift in intention, not perfection. It's built from listening, not to food trends or advertisements, but to the way your body actually feels after you eat. It's built from remembering that food is not a battleground, but a place of restoration. And it starts with what's real. Begin with one change, just one. Instead of the low-fat yogurt, try one with its natural fat still intact, plain, unsweetened, dressed with berries and a sprinkle of flaxseed. Instead of that fat-free salad dressing, drizzle extra virgin olive oil with a squeeze of lemon. Swap the white toast for sourdough or sprouted grain. Your body doesn't need reinvention, it needs reconnection. And every time you remove a processed item and replace it with a whole, living food, your heart takes a deeper breath. A heart-first plate isn't just about what's on it, it's about how it makes you feel afterward. Does it leave you full but not bloated, energized but not jittery? Does it let you go 3-4 hours without crashing? That's the difference between food that fills and food that fuels, between food that quiets inflammation and food that quietly causes it. It's subtle at first, but your body is always speaking. And when you start to truly listen, your choices begin to evolve, not from discipline, but from trust. Include fats that know how to nourish: avocados, nuts, seeds, fatty fish, real butter in modest amounts. Include plants that haven't been pulverized or powdered, vegetables in all their color, fruits that still carry their skin and fiber. Include proteins that aren't laced with additives: simple chicken, legumes, pasture-raised eggs. You're not building a diet, you're rebuilding a relationship. And here's the truth: the more you lean into this way of eating, the less you crave the artificial, the less your taste buds demand the exaggerated sweetness or saltiness. Your body begins to align with real rhythm. Your digestion steadies, your sleep deepens, your hunger comes in waves, not surges. Your heart, once weary from the ups and downs, begins to move in cadence with this newfound steadiness. A heart-first plate is a message, one you send yourself 3 times a day, saying, I care, I remember. I no longer outsource my choices to convenience. I choose nourishment that doesn't scream health, but quietly delivers it. And every time you make that choice, your heart listens and responds, not with strain, but with rhythm, not with burden, but with balance. There's no applause when healing begins. No spotlight, no dramatic moment where everything changes overnight. It starts in silence, in the stillness between meals, in the moments where you notice you're not as tired as you used to be, where your hands don't ache when you open the jar, where your walk around the block doesn't end with breathlessness. This is what strength feels like, not loud, but steady, not flashy, but faithful. You don't get there through gimmicks, you get there through truth. Through listening when your body whispers long before it screams, through giving your heart not just lighter food, but deeper food. You've spent years avoiding fat, dodging salt, skipping yolks, and trusting labels that promised protection. But now you see it more clearly. Real strength doesn't come from what you remove, it comes from what you restore. The quiet return to strength begins with trust, trusting that your body isn't broken, just overwhelmed, that your heart isn't failing, just underfed in ways that go beyond calories, that food can still be sacred if you let it be whole. A slice of sourdough with real butter, a bowl of steel-cut oats with chopped walnuts and cinnamon, a dinner of salmon and roasted vegetables, not measured for macros, but felt for peace. This is not a new diet, this is a return to something you already knew deep down before it was buried beneath decades of advice and anxiety. And then you notice the fear begins to fade. You stop scanning packages with dread. You stop blaming your body for not responding to what you were told would work. You eat, and instead of bracing for discomfort, you breathe through the meal. Your heart, that quiet metronome of your life, starts to move differently, not panicked, not strained, but calm. It doesn't have to fight so hard anymore. The return to strength doesn't erase time, but it honors it. It lets your age become wisdom, not weakness. It allows your meals to become medicine, not math. You stop reaching for the next fix. You start returning to the first truth, that the earth gave us what we needed long before marketing complicated the message. And now, every time you stand at your stove, every time you sit at your table, every time you take a bite of something real, you remember, this is your body, this is your season, and this is your power, not found in restriction, but in rhythm, not in trends, but in truth. You are not too late, you are right on time, and your heart, once burdened by every bite it didn't recognize, now moves with quiet relief, You didn't just change your food, you reclaimed your strength. And this, right here, is what healing really looks like.